What's up, people? It's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and I've got some kind of worrying news or worrying stuff to talk about here. And it especially worries me in two ways because, one, it's always horrible to see stuff like this happen or potentially happen and ruin a game's reputation or ruin a game's sales and potential future, or just overall ruin a million people who go and pay for a copy of a game that's crap or broken or doesn't work or whatever in whatever way, shape, or form. And two, it affects me personally because I'm going to be buying this too. So we all know that Ultra Street Fighter 2, which is the latest in the iteration of Street Fighter 2, which has been going on for 600 years now, is coming out on May 26th on exclusively on Nintendo Switch. And while there's plenty of info out there at the moment on the actual details of what changes in the game, what's new, what's an additional feature, many people, including myself, are a bit worried about the price. Generally, it's considered to be $40 or £35 or €40. Personally, my copy is coming in at €42 from Amazon.co.uk because my local GameStop here in Ireland, which is basically almost the only place to buy reliably, at least, games, are charging €70 for Ultra Street Fighter 2 in a physical form. Yeah, I know, it's pretty madness. But anyway, so it's come out, and a couple of places are talking about the review embargo for Ultra Street Fighter 2. And straight away, when you read the info that's coming out in these embargoes, it's red flags galore. And it's going to it's going to compound itself when the fact that you think of the history, exclusive, or especially with the likes of Street Fighter 5, and I believe Street Fighter 4 had a bit of a rough launch as well in some aspects. But it kind of sets off warning alarms. Now, one thing I will say on this, okay, is that of all the information seems to indicate that this is a Nintendo embargo, not a Capcom embargo, but a Nintendo embargo. I'm seeing lines being used, say, referring to, and this is a quote, referring to Nintendo's embargo on the Switch's Ultra Street Fighter 2 The Final Challengers. And then another one here as a perfect example. Here's the things you need to know about Nintendo's Ultra Street Fighter 2 embargo. The name is such a tongue twister. Ultra Street Fighter 2, The Final Challengers. It's so over the top. Anyway, so it's comments like that that make me think this is a Nintendo embargo. So for the purposes of everything I'm saying here, I'm working under the not influence, the impression that this is a Nintendo embargo and not a Capcom embargo. So, first off, the game is shipping pre-release to reviewers and to previewers and possibly even people like YouTubers and streamers and things like that. I don't count them. It's not a negative thing. I'm just saying this is mainly for games media. It's for reviewers and people like that. At least that's what I'm focusing on for here anyway. So the main thing is that all review copies, because if I'm not sure if it's because the game is pre-release or whatever, because we all know this feature is available for other games as it is at the moment, retail games, and is up and running on the Switch, that none of the review copies are going to have online features enabled. So there's no online features included in any of these review copies, which in turn leads to the problem that reviewers can no longer properly include online features early in their actual review. I'll get a bit more into this now in a minute because there is a review embargo and there's a preview area as well, but I'll get into that now in a minute once we actually get to those sections. So in not just Street Fighter, but in modern fighting games lately, the whole local aspect is kind of dialed back. Online and the online component of these games, of fighting games, is a big deal nowadays, especially when you look at the likes of say Injustice, Street Fighter 5. There's another one out there. What's that big one? Mortal Kombat. There's Killer Instinct. Online is a key important component of these games, and that's obviously something that needs to be, it's a major thing that needs to be addressed in reviews and previews. So the fact that it's launching to review copies with no online whatsoever is kind of worrying, which again we'll talk about now in a minute. But it's a potential big red flag for people who may buy this game on day one. Online might be broken, online might not work, the servers might be terrible, the Nintendo connection style or whatever way it works, whatever way you want to word it, might be terrible. Or maybe, for all we know, online could be not available at launch and then patched in later on. So, I mean, worst comes to worst, have they even confirmed online play anywhere? Rather now, because almost everyone I see says online features, which includes things like time trials and leaderboards and things like that. For all we know, because now that I'm thinking back, it's been a while since I've looked at an Ultra Street Fighter 2 kind of reveal or spec list, but for all we know, it could be possibly even no online features or no online multiplayer for it, which I think would be silly, but I don't think it's going to go that far. So yeah, that's pretty damning almost straight away. So as far as it goes, I mentioned there's a review period and a preview period. So usually what happens is your previews obviously take place before your reviews, and usually they have more restrictions. You're only allowed to talk about certain things, and you could possibly not give the game a score, or certain features might not be available, whatever. So that's pretty standard. Now, what is kind of worrying about the preview restrictions of Ultra Street Fighter 2 on Nintendo Switch, you're not allowed to even talk about any online features, not just a lack of online, or what would potentially be, once they add in multiplayer online, it'll be great, but you're not even allowed to talk about any online features whatsoever, or menus. You're not even allowed to talk about menus, which is also very strange. Maybe it's alluding to the fact that something is in the menus that could be giving something away, or maybe something isn't in the menus and people are wondering why it's not in the menus. Why is such a feature missing that we don't know about? So that's pretty worrying, because all of these compound each other. When you look at, say, the history of what we've had recently, especially coming from Capcom and Street Fighter, this can be kind of worrying. So anyway, that's some of it so far. Next up is you're not allowed to give Ultra Street Fighter 2 a review score while it's in preview, which is completely understandable. I'm not going to debate that at all, because when you think about it, it's only going to focus on certain select aspects, and you can't give a full review essentially on it. So fair enough. That's a little bit understandable, but some of the restrictions on the preview phase are very worrying, especially with the whole online and menus thing. So, on top of all of that, this part doesn't say if it's allowed to be done in the review or the preview, but I've seen around that they're not allowed, nowhere is allowed to reveal the length of time it takes to complete. Now, fair enough. Let me say this. This is a Street Fighter 2 game, okay? So, when I think of completing a Street Fighter 2 game, I just think turning on the game, hitting arcade mode or story mode or whatever they want to call it, picking my character, fighting through every single other character once, and then done. Now, I realize there's way more to it than that. There's stuff to unlock, there's just playing it for fun and all. But in my mind, if someone says to me, how would you complete Street Fighter 2? I'd say, well, I pick my character and I just beat everyone and that's it. So the fact that nowhere is allowed to talk about how long it takes to complete a game, that instantly makes me worry. In the same aspect of, look at Street Fighter 5. Street Fighter 5 launched with no arcade mode, no story mode, no any basic mode, and hell, the game didn't even properly work, and the servers were useless. But the fact is that it didn't even have these basic features. Now, fair enough, Street Fighter 5 was a new game. Here's what has me worried. Street Fighter 2 is 20 years old. The two base versions of the game that Ultra Street Fighter 2 is based on, which is, I believe, Street Fighter 2 Turbo and Super Street Fighter 2 HD Remix. These games already exist, and a lot of the features and all are already in them. Especially when you look at Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix. God, these names. This is the more relevant baseline. The improvements from this version to Ultra Street Fighter 2 are minimal at best, but I'm not here to debate that. So the fact is that that game has an arcade mode. That game, it's already there. So, I mean, why is this being worried and this being an issue? Now there could be a campaign mode or a story mode as well that maybe fleshes it out with cutscenes or something like that. So we'll see how it goes. But it's straight away, it's worrying considering everything else we've had from this embargo, the fact that this is included in the embargo, and Street Fighter Five. So that's pretty damn worrying. This next point I don't really have any issue with. There's no move lists, strategy guides, walkthroughs, etc. to be created during this period. That makes perfect sense. Basically, in my opinion, for a fighting game, everyone should just get their hands on it and play it at the same time. None of these so-called professional jokes who are actually professional players, if you want to call them, none of them should have access to the game early. No one should have access to the game early. At least no one in the general public should have access to the game early. So that's pretty much it. So when you look at everything in that, okay, there's also one more pretty worrying thing. So the actual review period and review embargo, it starts the day before launch. So the preview section, I have not seen a date on. So chances are it's probably going to be like a week before release or so, maybe a couple of days. But the actual proper full review period is going to be 1 day before launch, which means people are going to have to writing all this stuff up. People are going to have to try actually get online play in at that time, if it's even available 1 day before launch, to try get out a now I know most places are going to try rush out a review, as they all do, but to get people, the fact is that people probably use reviews. I don't use reviews myself, but people out there will be unable to find out, or at least limited on their ability to find out, if the game is broken, if the game is trash, if the game is bare bones and content light. It's going to be hard. There's only a very small window of people to do that. And because people are going to be trying to push out legitimate reviews in that 24-hour period of time, it's going to be pressure on the games media. Now, I'm not a fan of the games media at all. I'm being very vocal about my distaste for, quote, gaming media, unquote. They're, whatever we call them, their occupation is basically laughable, if you ask me. But the point is, when you look at all of that, it's worrying. And there's one last thing I'm going to talk about as well. Video's just about over, people. Don't worry about that. So look at everything we have on here at the moment, from embargoes to what could potentially be not in the game, or what is not allowed to be talked about, or whatever it is. Look at all of the stuff we've talked about in this video and compound all of that with one extra additional thing that I did not mention until right now. Nintendo have historically and factually been useless with online the majority of the time, including the Switch. The Switch has a bit of a shaky reputation with its online as it is. Mario Kart has some serious issues, as I've talked about before. But Nintendo has a very iffy relationship with online. Not just this generation, going all the way as far back as the Nintendo GameCube. There's been some dodgy stuff and questionable quality. And we don't know what the whole deal is with the membership later on this year. We don't know what the proper deal is with the pricing, or the proper deal is with the how the servers and connections are going to work, or if it's just going to be peer-to-peer for some reason, and that we'd have to pay for that. And then there's the whole thing with their stupid app, which is also stupid. But my point is, this is a company. I'm not here to bash Nintendo. Just look at it logically. Look at history. It really shows. And it has me worried that Nintendo might completely fuck up the online for Ultra Street Fighter 2. And I'm going to end it with one last thing. Is some of the executives at Capcom, naturally a lot of people are asking for Ultra Street Fighter 2 to be released on PlayStation 4, Xbox One and PC. And some of the executives at Capcom have said, oh, well, buy a copy of the Switch version, even if you don't have a Switch, to show us that the sales are there and it's worth us putting it onto another platform. I believe the quote at the time was something like, oh, we need to sell like 2 million copies before we'd even worry about putting it on a different platform. So that's worrying. Imagine if like the Switch has questionable third-party support at best, third-party support at best as it is. So if a high-profile game like Ultra Street Fighter 2, I say high-profile, it's all relative, but a popular, well-known franchise like this bombs and flops, what's that going to do? Capcom already aren't bringing their standard AAA games to Nintendo Switch. So if this flops, are other developers going to look and see? Are Capcom going to say, well, here, hang on, we're out? Or what's the deal? That's not the big focus of this video, though, but it's just a point I just wanted to bring up. So, what's the deal with you and your thoughts and opinions on the embargo from Nintendo, by the sounds of it, on Ultra Street Fighter 2 on Nintendo Switch? Do you think it's completely justified? Do you think it's completely bonkers? Are there warning sounds and warning alarms going off in your head and in your home at hearing this or seeing this or whatever? Because it's a lot to worry about, and if it was maybe just one little point here or there, but it's all of them compounded together, plus the Nintendo side of it, plus the Capcom history side of it, plus the Street Fighter 5 side of it. Who knows what's going to happen. The game is out in 2 weeks. I'm starting to get a bit more worried for my copy, but I'm still going to buy it anyway just because. Let me know anything you think about the whole crazy situation behind Ultra Street Fighter 2's embargo in the comment section below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter. Details in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the rest of the videos in my channel.